It's episode number 67 of the Welcome to Cooperville podcast. I'm Cooper, and my buddy Dan Beck is going to be back on the show here in just a bit. I'm really excited to chat with him, and I'll bring this up over the course of the podcast. But this will be our third one that we've done together, our first live stream, which is going to be awesome. But it'll be interesting to see from the first time we had our first conversation back in August of 2019. Our last one was in February, which 2020 seemed to be okay at that point in the world, and then March happened. So a lot of good things to talk about. We'll get to all that. Full disclosure, Dan Beck is a man from Midwest Meals and MidwestMeals.com. Proud sponsors of the Welcome to Cooperville podcast, rotating meals, your macros, everything that you need. It really is single dad, several jobs, entrepreneur, podcast host, all the things that I do. The one thing that I hate doing is dishes and having to worry about calorie counts. And when I know what's going into my body, I feel better about what I can exude. And that's the great thing about Midwest Meals. And of course, you get your order in by Friday at 5 p.m. or by midnight, and then they ship nationwide on Monday. So Dan never stops working. Dude's in there on Saturday, whipping stuff up. He's a beast. Promo code is Cooper at checkout at MidwestMeals.com, that website right there. And you get 10% off your first order at Midwest Meals. Violent Gentlemen Hockey Club, also proud sponsors of the Welcome to Cooperville podcast. I'm rocking my Nobody Likes Us, We Don't Care cap today. It's my fave. I have it on my Jeep. I have a banner that hangs in the studio here. It's a life motto. Check out their stuff. They just added a whole new awesome line of women's gear I just saw. I may just buy some just to see how it fits over the shoulders, even though I'm working on them. I'm trying to get the shoulder caps to pop a little bit. But ladies, they have cool stuff for you. You got that hockey attitude, and I'm glad they got a hockey season in so you can kind of carry it through the off season here and hopefully get back to a full dose of hockey in 2021. ViolentGentleman.com, again, the website, and hashtag, or the promo code is Cooperville15 for 15% off your order at ViolentGentleman.com. And we don't get through the day without Monster Energy, the Monster Podcast hashtag. Make sure you are spreading that if you are commenting anything tonight, which, by the way, you can comment, and we'll get to a little bit more of that and how it includes itself into the show. But the new Rain body fuels and the thermogenics, it's basically replaced my coffee in the morning. I still make a cup of coffee. It's really kind of strange. I'll make a cup of coffee. I'll have a sip just to kind of clear the mouth, clear the palate. And then it's really straight to that new Rain, the thermogenics. The red is fantastic. The ice blue, the jalapeno strawberry. It's a weird combination, but it's fantastic. Hashtag Monster Podcast, Monster Energy, proud sponsors of the Welcome to Cooperville podcast. Without further ado, bringing in the man, the myth, the legend, 3-time podcast guest, Dan Beck, my friend. How are you, sir? It's been a minute.
It's been more than a minute. It's been what seems to be an eternity since everything that's going on, but everything's been fantastic. How's everything been with you?
We'll get into a lot of it. Things, 2020 has definitely been a year of pivoting, and I think you have a lot of great examples about kind of succeeding through 2020, and I probably have some of a different way of getting through without having to completely close your business down. And it's kind of the be in defense mode, and be prepared for what happens next. But no, we've had a lot of great conversations, not just on this podcast. We've done some Instagram live stuff, especially early on in COVID. And then I know you got super busy with stuff. I got super busy with more personal life stuff, but it's definitely been a year to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually trying to think back because, it kind of meshes together from doing the lives to the last podcast, kind of where I was at in February and what's changed since then. Because like you mentioned in the intro, in February, everything still seemed cool. It was just, something on the horizon, not a big deal. Didn't really think two things of it. And obviously the year kind of took a different turn. So just trying to think back kind of where my mindset was in February to where it is today and everything that's obviously changed with it.
Yeah, because as a young entrepreneur, a guy who's had has had a lot of success and has been building on that success. You obviously there's an amount of planning that goes into here's where we want to be at this point. If you're working on something new, a new product or a new way of distribution, or there's always like, in a month, in 6 months, in a year. No, you kind of outline how the future is going to go. And again, a lot of times when you're doing that, actually, every time you're doing that, you're pretty sure that there's going to be strange things that happen throughout the course of a year, but nothing, I think, prepared anybody in any sort of business, any life, in any parenthood, relationship, human being, mammal, even the aliens are like, hey, we dropped the news that we're real and nobody cared. So 2020 really was the biggest wrench that I think, at least in the generations that are existing today, have ever had to experience. So the mindset has to be kind of reactionary almost.
Yeah, and really to a sense too, at least in the beginning, in the way that everything unfolded with how the economy responded to it, you had to go into that state. But at some point too, this is coming from someone who's not experienced terrible downturns. I was alive in 2001. I was alive in the 07, 08 market crash, but never really had skin in the game.
Right.
And at some point, during this, thinking back through books that I've read, podcasts that I've listened to of old people who have been through 5, 6, 7 of these, a lot of times the advice is always the same: is never waste a good disaster, because there is nothing but opportunity that comes out of this if you're willing to, one, take the initiative to go do it, but also you have to overcome the fear that this is never going to end, because at some point it will. And I just had this conversation yesterday with a local gym owner. It's the same thing. There's so much opportunity because so many people did the exact opposite, ran with their tail between their legs going the opposite direction. I mean, even real estate, for instance, commercial real estate, there's so much open space now. And that's a silver lining of all this, because I mean, the sad reality of this is there's a lot of businesses that will never reopen. But from the alternative is, if you can weather through it, all of a sudden your options become a lot greater.
Yeah, I was reading a book recently, in the last 6 months, The Obstacle is the Way, Ryan Holiday. Great book. I put it probably in the top 5 of those I've either read or listened to. And he talks about some of those very things. I mean, and this book was obviously written before COVID in 2020, but just a plethora of examples of those who have succeeded during the Great Depression, and really tough times economically, where and you're talking about guys like, the Standard Oil Company, major, brands that continue to this day, whether under the same name or under the same guise. But these guys who took, and gals, there was female examples as well, but that they took these tough times when everybody else was doing exactly what you're saying, and they were kind of either playing it super safe, which sometimes isn't necessarily a bad decision. But if you are looking to maybe grow from a brand or a business that is at a certain level, and you're trying to up your game or go next level or explode, it takes a certain mindset to not succumb to the fears and to the really the vibe in the room, especially when the room is global, and being able to tune out the narrative, whichever narrative you happen to be being fed the most, and kind of push through. But there's a lot of examples throughout history of things like this on a global scale that people have really succeeded in business in. And that book is a great one. Ryan Holiday, Obstacle is the Way.
He also wrote Daily Stoic, which is,
yes.
I just looked it up. I knew that I recognized the name, but that's one I'll add to my list.
Yeah, if you're that's one of the things that I wanted to start actually getting into reading more of and studying more of, is that Stoic. He has a great Instagram that he runs, the Daily Stoic. Every day they put up a new quote, whether it's from Marcus Aurelius or Seneca or some of these great names throughout history, and just to read them in context in 2020, knowing how long ago they were written, and go, oh, like, yeah. I guess like the basics are they transcend space and time.
And it's bizarre really too, because as someone who, going through college, and I think we've talked about this before too, me being a nerd at some degree, I took the philosophy classes. Like, that was some of my favorite stuff that I actually learned,
Mm.
and it continued beyond then. Same thing for me. One of my favorite philosophers is Albert Camus, a French philosopher, and a lot of his things are really relevant now too, because he wrote a lot of stuff about plague and how it was dealt with and what that meant. And obviously we've moved past the plague. There's a lot that can be drawn from that insight that we can take and actually apply, in a really strategic way today.
Yeah, and when you are able to do that, when you're able to decipher words that were written, obviously there's going to be some translation stuff, the these, thys, and thous, which I still like to throw in every once in a while, like how art thou, thou as well,
That was,
thou as well. But I think when you read them and you put them into the life that we are in 2020, or even decades before, you can really start to develop a set of characteristics that if you hone in on them and you stick to them, they just become part of the fabric of who you are as a human. And whether that's in business or whether that's just as an individual who wakes up every day and is thankful for the blessings that they do have and not coveting the things that they don't. And some people find that in religion, but I think if you again, religious quotes, sometimes if you put them into a context where it is just the words, you're like, oh yeah, I get, that makes sense. I should be a better person and not an asshole. It simplify it a little bit, but there's a bunch of great things out there from the Daily Stoic, and that I've really started to follow and share with a lot of the Welcome to Cooperville followers, because they've kind of gotten a vibe for where this podcast tends to lean a little bit. Try to be a little inspirational, a little motivational every once in a while.
Hell yeah. It fits right up your alley though too, being a historical meditator, and the things that typically align with that. So it's cool to see that as a natural extension.
Now, as you've gone through, again, in February we were talking, and I'm not even sure we were talking about NutriPrep just yet. I mean, it was kind of one of those things that was bubbling under. Maybe we talked about it off mics a little bit, but to have this big undertaking, which we'll get to some more of the finite details of, about that expansion during a time like this. But for you, stand business owner, take that out of it. How has 2020 affected you, like in your, I mean, I know the car washes are still open. You can social distance inside a car wash. For those who don't know, or just joining the stream, Dan washes his car every day.
Pretty much.
I mean, unless it's out of order, and I'm not sure what criteria fit into, didn't get it washed today, but probably washes it twice the next day. But avid car wash connoisseur. So things like that, yes, you can still do. But as far as like any other, what things have you had to adjust in your personal life, in your day to day, because of COVID?
Yeah, well, it's been really kind of an interesting culmination of not only COVID, but a shift in workflow. Because, like you mentioned, late last year, I reached out to a guy locally who brought a franchise company called Herberts and Gerberts from about 20 locations to north of 100 locations, and reached out to him because ultimately that was the vision for Midwest Meals, was to build a physical kitchen, a physical storefront as a franchise model in, most major cities. That was the goal. That's why I reached out to him. And interestingly enough, his name is Eric. He had a lot of interest in potentially doing something with me. Come to find out, his wife had been purchasing meals for the past 6 months and picking them up. So that helped. But we essentially created a sister company called NutriPrep with the focus on initially that franchise side. But since then, it's really pivoted in the meantime, just based on the franchise model and how we're able to best reach people. But as that has unfolded from late last year into February and beyond, all of a sudden my workflow went from just Midwest Meals and having my office in the same building to moving my office in my residence now and having it here, working obviously a lot more virtual than in person,
Right.
and managing that. And then also, things like I love working out, and I have that history of that. This has not necessarily been the best period for anyone for exercise who's a gym goer per se, because yeah, that kills that routine really quickly if you were reliant on going to the gym for that exercise. Obviously, if you were biking outside, COVID ain't stopping anyone. Exactly.
Beast mode.
I did not get on my bike as much this summer as I would have liked to, because the dog has to go with outside, and he will not operate with the bike going.
No, not a fan.
Not a fan at all.
See, these are the real life challenges, man.
Yes, it's been very interesting, but it's been a culmination of a lot of that stuff, but on top of adding it into COVID and how to kind of navigate those waters. So I mean, a real concrete example. So NutriPrep, we have the franchise model, and we have our first franchisee in Wilmer, Minnesota, but we're also using a USDA kitchen in Minneapolis to prepare stuff for a grocery store chain. We've done some stuff for a couple of university systems and plan to continue that as well. But with COVID, I can't physically be there to supervise, do quality assurance, because it's company policy that I cannot be on premise because I'm not essential staff. That's something that's very different for me to adjust to and be able to, kind of hone that in. And that's obviously a very specific example of how there's the little ripple effects that will continue, with COVID regulations moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's for each, I think, entrepreneur, small business owner, in your case, somebody who has a bigger plan and has been able to, circumvent and navigate through the challenges of COVID. Everybody's going to have to go through something throughout this. For me, when we launched Captain Coop's Beard Company, the real idea was to be kind of a for the individual product. Which I see you got some love.
Little bit.
I know a guy. I'll hook you up. We'll get that thing looking fabulous. But that was the original. The plan that we had was to be this brand that is really kind of lives and breathes online. And then we kind of said, well, what if we had our own brick and mortar? And hindsight 2020, thankfully that plan, because it was close. We would have been in a building was way too big for the space we needed. And in about 3 weeks, it would have been closed down. So hindsight 2020. But when we started to kind of, progress forward with the product line, we realized that really where we needed to be is still have that element of availability to somebody to order online and excuse me, to be able to reach, the nationwide product line. But what we really started to figure out is that when we started to talk to salons and barbershops, especially ones that weren't chains, ones that were, I want to say mom and pop operated, but owned by locals, there really was, and you've dealt with this too, is, there's a sense of supporting local. Hey, I got your back, you got mine. So we really realized, like, damn, if we really started to get into the salon barbershop industry on a local level and really had started in late February to kind of map out, like, okay, we're 5 spots, 6 spots, on the verge of 7 and 8. We've done presentations. Let's map out basically the quadrant of Northwest Wisconsin or West Central Wisconsin into kind of by Wausau up to kind of Bayfield, doing some touristy stuff up there over towards Hudson. Kind of mapped out, like, okay, dots on a map, pins on a map. Like, okay, here are the places that we think, would support our product because they're locally owned and would feel a connection. And I've always wanted to have that kind of relationship with the clients that I've dealt with, is to have that. I'm not Paul Mitchell, I'm not I'm not sure what other brands are. I'm not Suave. Do people say Suave still a thing? Pert Plus? Anybody? No, I don't know. We're not like, your typical salon barbershop owner has obviously their line of stuff that's on a national brand that comes in. I'm like, I don't want to be that guy that's like super duper pressuring. I'm like, here's our stuff. What we want you to do is here's our whole line. Try it on your clients, see what they think, give us some feedback. And we've always had, that's really what's had our success in the beginning, was those kind of relationships, communication. We started to map out those locations in late February, started to plan road trips. Like, okay, so let's stock up on this. Let's go back into production. Now, in the meantime of all this, we have 3 products in dev. We're working on a shaving balm, an aftershave, and a tattoo balm. So we've reinvested back into the company in order to get these 3 products, which we think we had this piece of the pie of guys with beards. Like, well, let's go with the other piece of the pie of guys that don't have beards. And let's also market, with the products that are the ingredients that we use for our product. We could really do some cool stuff with a tattoo brightener SPF thing, getting to the tattoo shops, fits our brand. So 3 products in dev, planning this big, road trip of salons and barbershops, dropping up a bunch of product. And then they get shut down. All of them.
Which is bizarre.
One day, March 18th, it was the day after St. Patrick's Day. All of them shut down. And of course, if you go back, if you want to scroll back far enough on your timeline, I think everybody can see that whole like phase everyone went through with, I couldn't get a haircut. Some people went under the cover of darkness and got haircuts. I'm not naming names. But the toughest part, I think, for that is that was going to be that's the income that comes in, that feeds the dev, that feeds back into marketing. Nobody's really getting paid buku bucks at this point. We're like, oh, cool. Now I can finally get that Harley I've been wanting to get for my 40th birthday. 41. It's on the list. But the tough part for that was we shut down development, and we had to shut down production of our line because we had inventory. And then July came and they opened back up. And again, this was personal decision. I'm like, I am also not going to be the guy that goes into salon barbershop owned by 1-2 people that has been out of work for 4 months. Be like, hey, I know you're struggling to make ends meet. And now you have to deal with all the regulations that are out there where you have to, you can only take X amount of clients a day, and you can't have as many chairs in here. And I know you're not making as much, revenue as you were before, but, please let's get some orders done here. I didn't want to be that person. Mm-hmm. So I think that is where, I talked about, really early on in the podcast is I said defense, kind of a defense mode, but there is kind of the holding pattern. We worked on some white label stuff. We had some conversations. We actually went in and did some really small development for some other labels that we're working with. So we were working on things, but we knew that the timing was not right for how we wanted to run our business, which is to really, at this juncture, now not quite a year in legally, to go out and be like, get back in and buy our product. They've slowly started to come back. We realized that their clients are also slow to be like, oh, now I got the haircut. I'm not really going to invest in the $20 bottle of beard stuff, So they're right now it's starting, the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way.
Yeah.
Hoping that any new regulations that have recently been dropped have an effect on that. But I do think you have to have an approach of not necessarily tucking your tail, but going, okay, here's how our business model looks like this. We can focus now more on this white label idea, talk to some more clients and work on that. And maybe less so pressure on, our wholesale clients that are still, at this point, it's 4 months after they've reopened. They're still not quite back to full cap and running everything the way they used to. So it's a methodology. It's a way to do it.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, and to add to that, you mentioned that it's not what I initially mentioned, the tucking your tail and running away. But this is a theme that I had really noticed So one of my favorite podcasts is How I Built This with Guy Raz, an NPR podcast. And at the beginning of COVID, he did a little shift and he started doing these resilience editions where it's how businesses are actually dealing with COVID and how they're able to come out the other side stronger and even grow with it. But to your point, it's not drive the things that are going to put a nail in your own foot. It's cut the fat of what you don't need to do right now. Do what you need to do. And really ultimately, especially in large organizations, you start as you grow. And I've seen this on my small scale as well. As you start to grow, all of these little things that you don't realize that you're doing add up. At 5 employees, I have one software that works great. And at 10 employees, maybe I need to switch it, but didn't cancel the other one. And there's just all this fat that comes with, just time. And it's really just trimming the fat of stuff that you don't need to be doing, the stuff that you don't need to be paying for, that you don't realize that you're paying for, and leaning out. And I think that's something to really think about, is a mentality as anyone starts anything, is really that lean startup and lean operation, position, because ultimately the leaner you are and still able to grow, the better position you are to capitalize on when something like this happens.
Right. I think there's been a lot of, and you've been established in the things that you're working on with NutriPrep and the way that that's grown, even through the challenges of COVID and not being able to be on site. My challenges of not being able to reach out to my wholesale clientele. If you're observant in this time, I think you and I have talked about how we ingest social media. It's not necessarily from, I want to go see what Dan had for supper tonight, or what are somebody's political views, or, like I watched the game. I know what the score was. I don't need, armchair quarterbacks 2 cents on, why the defense sucks. What we ingest it as trying to look through the looking glass of how other people look at social media and how they gravitate towards, I don't want to say advertisements, but look how people interact with ads and what works. But even on a whole scale of social media, you've seen a lot of these things, and I'll use the platform that we're on right now, StreamYard. They should pay me for that plug, by the way. I don't know if somebody marked that. You've seen applications like StreamYard, Streamlabs, another application that I use for podcasting and live streaming stuff. Zoom, all of these different tech products, programs that were around. Zoom was around, but has taken on this. It's now part of the fabric of not just the business world, but society in general. I mean, families are house partying. I are on Zoom. There's I was on a Fans of Rockfest one several months ago, and people are utilizing these things, these applications now as part of their daily life. My kid, not necessarily this year because he's doing a lot more hands-on stuff, and they're doing a lot less of the virtual, but the last quarter of his 4th grade year, Google Classroom. I mean, just and it was all set up. Here's his assignments. Here's where the video chat is. If he needs to chat with the teacher, all of these things are set up, and somebody went, I bet you there's a way to monetize this. Yep. And they have. So there's something to be said about during these times, there's going to be great opportunity to, whether it's invest in companies. Also, if there's a time for startup, it's really just being observant. And this goes back to kind of the core of starting, if you're going to start a business, like what problem am I trying to solve? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to figure out, like, what are people having issue with that I can develop something, for you. And we talked about this on podcast 1. This was about, for you, the obesity epidemic. It's not that was the reason. There was a problem. How can we figure out a way and a solution, and really understanding the psychology of of how human beings operate. Quick, easy, fast. Don't mess with the system too much. Wow, I have an idea. Here you go. But if you're observant and you can see like, okay, what throughout COVID are people like going, I can't do this. How can I get this? I don't know. Eat Street, Uber Eats, DoorDash.
There's a ton of opportunities that exactly they come out of it.
Yeah. And I looked at the restaurant industry a lot, and some have done a really, really great job of adapting to the circumstances that they have to go through right now, and especially in being hit now twice with 25% cap. Now, again, a lot of these were operating at a much lower capacity because of the social distancing mandate. You got tables taken out, you got bar stools taken out. They're already, below where they can cap out at. But some, especially in the beginning, curbside pickup, delivery, some were like within a week on it. And now that will likely be a part of just a service that they offer. The ones that didn't, the ones that behind the curve or couldn't figure out how to make it work, those are some of the ones that you're probably not going to be able to go to anymore. We've seen them shut down, and not just, Dan and Coop's barbecue joint, but major chains that are like, again, trimming the fat. Well, sorry, Eau Claire. Sorry, Chippewa Valley. We're not making enough to warrant keeping this open during all this crap.
And it's really a point too, even, as you're saying that, is really why were these businesses not thinking about these things in February or in January, or when they had no idea that anything was coming? Why, as a business, you need to operate lean, but operating lean also allows you to make pivots really quickly. And, a lot of times we do the same thing where, we have shipping orders that go out. We have online orders that people pick up. We have grab and go coolers. We have a micro market cooler coming in that's actually going to be placed in Chippewa, and all of these different methods. But why would you not, as a business, and this is specific to the food industry, why would you not already focus on those things?
Yeah, I think that's when you're comfortable. I think, and especially if you have a level of success, or you're achieving, what you would consider to be success, at least in the revenue. Business is great. The menu's great. We have a good staff on board. It's kind of like, we're going to keep it status quo. Things are going so well. Why would we change anything? Not thinking like, and having nothing to do with predicting a global pandemic, because that's tough to do. But you don't think about, man, how could I really, and this goes back to super serving your customers. Mm-hmm. How can I really super serve that person? I'm 40. Do I like going to restaurants? Yeah, about 4:00. That's my window. Get me out any later than that and turn into a pumpkin. I'm kind of Cinderella-like. But man, I as much as on the nights that I do eat not Midwest meals, usually Sundays, because Saturday's the cutoff day. But when those nights come, it's like, can somebody just make it easy? This goes back to ease and convenience. I got 90 million other things going on. Single dad in it, trying to navigate business, trying to navigate podcasts, trying to navigate jobs, trying to navigate, relationship. Like somebody should have thought how to make this easier for me. Think customer first. Yeah. And I think that's where the in lies the problem, is that people don't think about that. They're like, well, this is good. We're successful. We have a happening joint. People come here for our famous Friday fish fry, Saturday prime rib, our Tuesday taco bar. They have their things. They've set them up, and they'll tweak those. They'll tweak those things, make it easier, but not to the point where they're going, man, if we had delivery service or curbside pickup, or we made online ordering.
Do you think that comes from, and this is a question, because I tend to identify a bucket that people fit in pretty easily. That's something that I can do. But I tend to notice a lot of people who go into business that don't necessarily want to do the work. They want to set up, this passive income or whatever that they're looking for, where they don't even need to look at it in order for it to make that return. Do you think that that's part of the reason why too? And has that been your experience?
I think that has a lot to do with it. I think you have, and whether it's I don't want to say bequeathed, but you come into a great opportunity. XYZ place comes open, available. Liquor licenses, we all know how difficult those are to get around here, because as soon as there's one available, it's gone, within days. So if you find yourself with this opportunity, not really coherently thinking about, oh, I want to make this great, and then I want to make it better, and I want to keep on improving it. Yeah, it's set up shop and, put the work in, like off the bat, or find some people that will, snatch a person from over here. Oh, hey, I know this guy from, great chef, great cook. This person, this beautiful woman could be our server. It's the cookie cutter industry.
Yeah.
But if you go and you start to look at places and you look at their website, that's usually a big indication. And the ease and convenience of navigating through it. You click on things and it goes to a PDF. You're like this is not just 2020. like 5-10 years. Like, this is something that needs to be a major part of your the dichotomy of your business, and not just the website, the social media. There's people that I was talking to my aunt and uncle from out of town. One of the first things they do when they go to a different location, they travel a lot, is they will search a hashtag. Like, people don't think that's a thing. They're like,
that's cool.
Run Chippewa Falls. That's not one of them, because that's something I came up with. But it's, people will search for things because they want to try to find the best of what that area has to offer. If you're not dialed in on the social media thing, or you're super far behind the curve, people without like really good vetted recommendation from somebody, like, yeah, but they have really good steak. Go get the steak, get it done like this, you'll be good. But if you don't have all of the things tied together, your clientele is going to remain your clientele, and it's not going to grow. It's not going to expand, because you're not going, oh, people like to order things online. Dude, eventually we will just order things online. That is just, you won't even have to go online. You'll just yell in the air and your robot will order it for you. And I think, we're already there in some aspects. Like, add that to the list. Send me that, robot. And while you're at it, dim the lights.
Yeah, and you're actually not even like, pulling that out of your ass either, because it is coming. And that's actually a podcast I listened to within the last week or so while working on some house projects, was with the CEO of Walmart's online platform. And they're actively doing that right now. They're working on the regulation side of it, and they're making drone deliveries. And Walmart is, probably one of the few examples that are starting to make a pivot, and they're albeit maybe a lot slower than some of the others out there. Amazon's astronomical rise to the top, but people forget that Walmart's still this big behemoth. They're still pivoting. They just released Walmart Plus, and they're still doing all of these things. That kind of an organization, when you have the ability to do those kind of A/B tests, figure out what's better, and go forward, that's where it's going to happen. So you saying that, drone delivery from a restaurateur's perspective, you should be thinking about that stuff already. Yeah. I'm and this is not me tooting my horn, but the way that I think is I think through those things too. If I'm listening to Doug McMillan from Walmart talk about drone deliveries, the back of my head, I always try to connect things to what's in my life. So I'm like, okay, drone deliveries are going to be a thing that Walmart will likely be implementing in the next 5 to 10 years. How can I take that technology and make my local delivery from someone manually running it into a vehicle to, on Monday morning, a drone drops off your food at your front door?
Right.
What are those steps?
And I think that's the opposite way of thinking of somebody who is, again, we talked about just getting into it for that passive income, doesn't want to work on it, doesn't want to connect all of the dots that, yes, you do have to have a quality product. You have to have a quality. The food has to be great. The presentation has to be great. The staff has to be great. The ambiance have to be great. Even if you have all those things perfected, which does take work, But if you're not connecting the website dots and the social media dots and the innovative dots, you could maintain for a while, but somebody is going to be out there thinking about the things that you just mentioned, about innovative ways that and but it's Walmart, but that's not how it's done.
Right.
Well, that's not how it was done. Things progress natural. We don't do it that way. We want people to come in and sit down and, well, great. Well, when you go from having a full dining room and now regulated to a 25% cap room, whatever, to why are my numbers dwindling? You're going to see that more after COVID, because people are going to go, well, shit, I don't have to get dressed up, find a sitter for the kid. I worked all week and now I have to go out and I know if I go out, instead of buying the 12 pack of beer or, buying a 6-pack for $6 or $10, I'm going to buy 4 beers for $5. People will start to, and have started to think that way. It's so much easier for me to just go, hey, robot, I would like this food delivered to my house. And I want fries with that, or I want it medium. People are going to are becoming accustomed to all the companies that have really not taken advantage of COVID, but been like, how can I super serve the customer right now? And that is make it simple for them. They're trapped inside. They want to not make dinner every night, bring it to their house. They want to, you gotta think that way. Otherwise you're not playing the long game. And the long game is a conversation that you and I had on your podcast. I think last year, was it this year? I don't know. It all runs last year. It's, if you're not in it for the long game, you're going to think in very short intervals. And every time you maybe get to a step where you have to make a decision, you're already behind the curve. You're already 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years behind the person that's already doing it. Like, oh, people really like that XYZ company does that. We should think about doing that. They're already doing it and they're already taking your customers. Simple.
Exactly. It's interesting. Something I just picked on too, that you just said, that thinking ahead, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that's something that I necessarily did not do as a young person going into business. I thought ahead in what I thought compared to other people that my peer group. I was thinking ahead compared to them, but I wasn't thinking ahead to where I want to be in 10 years. I was thinking, how do I go from, getting set up in a shared commercial kitchen to building a kitchen to XYZ? I should have been thinking, how do I sell 1 million meals per week so that I can ultimately fulfill the thing that I'm setting out to fulfill? Because there's this disconnect between, you want to solve a problem, whether that's food related obesity, whether, even like a beard product. If having a well-groomed beard makes you feel cool, that is awesome. That's a problem to be solved.
Right.
But as a young person who went into that mindset, a lot of times you don't think, what's my life actually going to look like in 10 years? What do I need to be doing now to figure out that I'm on track for 2 years and down the road? And we talked about that kind of the first podcast as well, is, casting that really wide vision net, then bringing it back until you can have some sort of a daily action step to get there.
And I think there's a lot of, and I've dealt with it. I mean, I was, again, so I wasn't in business. I really wasn't in a business mindset for the majority of my life. And it was, until I was 18, 19, when I first got into radio, and then, damn near 40 when I got out. So that thought process at scale was not on my radar. So in the last almost 2 years, I've had to develop these things and to get over a lot of stuff. And I think, fear is always going to be a presence that you can either push through or it keeps you down. And I've dealt with that, fear of, I don't want to say putting myself out there as like the spokesperson for my brand, which I've been more apt to do now, because I realize that there is some cohesion to what I stand for, what my brand stands for. making phone calls, going into clients, doing all these things. I think there's a lot of, especially new into business, that you're like, this is super cool and I'm super driven and I'm really excited about the things I'm doing. And I have these goals in mind, and you can come to a crossroads and fear stands in your way and you go, I really want to get there. That's the spot I want to get. But man, there's this big ball of fear that's standing like I have to do this. I have to break through this wall. And that's another great reference to the obstacle is the way. Ryan Holiday talks about it, there's a boulder in the way. And if you go around it, you're not going to reach your destination. If you try to go under it, you're not going to reach your destination. You literally have to go through it. That is the way. The obstacle is the way. Okay, how do I get past this fear, this thing I don't necessarily feel comfortable with? How do I do it? It's taking that step back from that boulder and being like, you know what? I got to figure out a way through it. And this, COVID has definitely added an extra boulder on top of that boulder, because now you have whatever fear that you have, whatever obstacle is in your way. On top of it, now you have rules, regulations. You have a very fiery. I think fiery is an understatement. The tone of the country seems to be a little fiery. I feel like perhaps I just made the understatement of the year right there. Note it, quote it, make it a thing. But you have this now on top of this fear, on top of this obstacle, you have now this other concern of like, shit, if I break this boulder underneath and this other boulder comes crashing down, however I decide to handle keeping this in the air or pushing it off to the side to get through it, there's a likelihood that you could, I almost say piss off, but people are so sensitive right now. Like, oh, no matter what you do, you're going to have somebody or you're going to have a group that is pushing that boulder down on top of you. And really for no just reason, except for really they have apparently nothing better to do. So how do you get, push through the obstacle that you have to get through? Now you have this COVID, and you have the political climate, and you have the race climate. You have all these other things that are going on. You're like,
but I think it gets easier too. As you push through that first boulder. I mean, I remember very, very specifically coming out of college, thinking through the fear of having to tell my parents that I wasn't going to go get a job. and that was something that seemed so small, and it really came back to me as one little tipping point that you can start to build this snowball, and from there then new obstacles seem less and less, that it's not really a big deal. Even going into business, at the beginning, the get-go, I used basically everything I had saved working through high school and college to buy a couple of commercial coolers. And all of a sudden, one cooler went down and I had $1,000 repair bill. And it seemed like this, like, oh, it's over, done. All right, throw the towel in. Versus, I mean, even through COVID, we just spent $100,000 on 3 machines that put a piece of film on the meal. And I didn't think twice about it, because I as you go thinking through logistically what that implication is, it becomes a lot less scary. And you start to realize, people are doing exactly what you're doing, but with 100 times the risk and 100 times the reward. And if they can get through it, likely you can too.
And I think once you get through that first challenge, I mean, you talked about the $1,000 bill and how much that weighs on you. I mean, same thing. You get these things, or something breaks, or something doesn't work right, or you have to go back to the drawing board on stuff. And now you look back and it's small. I mean, it's nothing compared to what you have to deal with now. But getting through that first challenge and not throwing in the towel and not tucking your tail and not running away from it, figuring out a way to be like, okay, well, this was unexpected. This sucks. You don't tail off a whole lot into like, shit, with that $1,000 we could have, you go, okay, we're going to take care of this because we need this to make this work. those decisions when things like that happen get easier because you've dealt with them. You've dealt with equipment breaking, or in things as small as like customer reviews. Someone said our food sucks, or your beard product sucks, or it smells like. Those people can be very sensitive to words too, and not just bills and broken equipment. They can be like, oh no, one person doesn't like my stuff, so I can't do this anymore. I'm afraid to not handle the criticism. But once you get, you look at even people who are on a celebrity scale, who have so much hatred spewed towards them for things that they say, things they do, things they wear, things they think, things they hang out with. It's like they have gone through that since the get. In business, you're going to go through that shit from the get. And I think you get to a point, and I'll reference this, and it's it's country, so it may not resonate with you. Morgan Wallen is a country artist. I think he's fantastic. Scheduled to perform on Saturday Night Live this weekend. Okay. So, and this is, again, I would handle things differently, but I'm an asshole. So don't take my advice on this. So he's scheduled to perform. Obviously they're running the promos for it. He's done the thing. He's got the whatever, social distance hosting on whatever. And so the video emerges of him like last weekend, like in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, at some house party, not social distancing, drinking massive quantities of Jack Daniels, making out with random chicks. Okay. So this video comes to light, and SNL says, well, you're not social distancing, so we're pulling you from SNL. Big opportunity for a guy. He's still going to be successful. But he goes on, and obviously in that genre, which is really weird because most of it's about like drinking and making out with chicks. So I don't quite get it, but whatever. The negative feedback spewed towards him. How could you, he's not married, so whatever. But this is just inappropriate behavior. This is unacceptable. COVID. Da, da, da. And so he comes out and does what some celebrities do and gives the heartfelt apology. I need to find myself. I need to change some things. And I was like, dude, I would have said, fuck him. Like, okay, I don't get to do SNL. This is who I am. That's obviously who he was. You have to be able to be who you are, run your ship the way you want to run your ship, and not succumb to comments, broken coolers, bad reviews. You got to just be able to.
No, you're. I think that you and I are the same thought process. That if that were myself, and I say this in a situation, not being in his situation, maybe I would apologize and be completely opposite. But the way that I like to think that I would handle it is exactly what you're saying. Yeah. And two things kind of are coming to mind from that. One specifically, and we chatted about this in the first podcast about Andy Frisella. That was his entire MO, building his social media following, is, hey, I'm not for everyone. If I piss you off, don't follow me. If you piss me off, I'm blocking you. We don't need, the world is big enough that we don't need everyone you don't need to be all things to all people.
Exactly.
And the second thing that came to mind, coming from the Eau Claire area, so this is only going to resonate with anyone that's familiar with a fairly large brand, but Menards. So John Menard, starting Menards out of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, he's worth somewhere in the neighborhood of multi-digit billions of dollars. Yep. If you go to Google and you type in your local Menards, I guarantee you the reviews are not so great. But I can guarantee you that has zero impact on John Menard's ability to run his business, because he understands the things that he's learned over, his course of business, that yes, at some level, someone needs to be looking at those reviews. And if there's legitimate complaints that need to get addressed, they need to get addressed. But someone throwing a temper tantrum seems so much harsher in the beginning when you're not filtered through someone looking at those, and it's just you as the owner seeing them. But remember that happens to every business, successful or not.
Mm-hmm. There was, and I think we even talked about this, and this is similar to, I think, the Morgan Wallen situation, but on a maybe more relatable scale, and that was Tim Grover. I think it's Unstoppable. I just got to make sure because I know it's like got 4 different Relentless. It's
Yes.
how to become unstoppable. So Tim Grover, like the trainer for Michael Jordan, Kobe, just this fantastic book that everybody really should read. It's called Relentless, and really there's a lot of basketball references to it, but I think it applies a lot to either business or fitness, or business and fitness mindset people, or people that just want to be relentless and badass. But he talks about when Tiger Woods went through the Tiger Woods scandal, his issues with his wife and mistresses, multiple. How upset he was, and what he didn't want to see was Tiger Woods come out and do what Tiger Woods did, and that is make this written apology, this big public thing. Sorry to everybody, and as just a golf fan, or a fan of Tiger at the time, because dude was just, even if you hated golf, you're like, yeah, Tiger Woods, that dude just goes out and kills it every single time he's out. He's chasing greatness at a young age, and obviously being African American in this standardized old white guy sport, just revolutionized golf, changed the game for forever. Golf will never be the same because Tiger Woods was in it. He made it young, he made it cool, made it hip, made it badass. And then this thing happens and does this apology, and then was never Tiger Woods again. He lost that edge, and the book is great. It goes into a lot of, psychology of why that happens, because when you're that good, you have this dark side that just needs to fulfill itself so you can go out and perform at your best. He's like, he was pissed that Tiger Woods came out and did that apology, because he's like, that ruined him. He may come back and he'll win a major. He'll play the Menards Open and and win that, and he'll do a bunch of cool stuff, and he'll still be Tiger Woods, and people will fawn, but he's never going to be the athlete, the not even athlete, physical athlete, the mental athlete that he was, until he went out and made that public apology. He stepped on his wife. That's between him and his wife. They can deal with it, but the public wants to hang you. Again, full circle, comments. And you got somebody in your ear, some guy that, you pay money to, going, we should make a public apology. Here, I've written it for you. That was like one of the most uncomfortable things to watch. Besides the fake Brett Favre retirement, that was one of the most uncomfortable things to watch. Don't cry and then go play for the Jets, asshole. And then the Vikings.
He dyed his hair blonde, and now he's repping a CBD company in Green Bay, I think, which is funny to see.
When all else failed, and Brett Favre went through the same thing. The same had the thing with the Crocs and the picture with the girl from Florida State, but the same thing. I'm sorry. All right. Well, but no, I do think that you talk about getting through those kind of things, whether it's public feedback, negative reviews. You've got to be able to push past those things, because eventually they making that $1,000 bill payment to get your shit fixed or get a new refrigerator. Now it's like, this needs to be done.
Things, it's something that you had to do to continue on, and all of those individual things are places where people quit. Just don't quit.
Yeah, you gotta keep going through it, and it's tough. It's tougher now. It's tougher in 2020. Who knows what 2021 will bring? Because I do think you are going to see. Everybody wants to get back to normal. I can't wait till life gets back to normal. There is not going to be a normal that was 2019, 20. There never is. We always progress. But now, I can't wait till things get back to normal. There's not going to be a normal. This form of communication. Dan, I could have had you in my studio tonight. We could have sat down here and shot the shit for hours on end. But you didn't have to leave your house. I can still throw things at my kid when he comes in the studio. Stop. I can still do that because technology, the world will adapt and cater to people during these times. Food delivery, you know, all the things that we now are like, oh man, this is super nice. Like, of all the things that suck, like, this is super cool. Like, we can do this. Like, I can, the house party app. I chat with my mom out in California. She's been, fires and shit that she goes through, and I'm like, I love talking to you, but if you don't want to deal with fires, don't live in California.
Move
But
out. Yeah.
it's pretty simple. But the capabilities to communicate, to run business, a lot of the business platforms that I'm on, like Shopify has done some great things, some incentivized things. They've really upped their game because of COVID, things that will always forever be implemented as part of their program and integration. All these things are going to be different. 2021, 2022, the future is going to have changed because of COVID. Mentalities will change because of COVID and things we had to get through. So this go back to normal thing, you got to be thinking that, okay, what's the new look? What's the new normal?
I think too, even to add to that, this is a time to be hyper vigilant of people that are doing things really well in response to COVID. People that are adapting to the new ways that we're doing stuff. People that are, pivoting their businesses entirely and serving the customer the best, because those are the people that you want to be surrounded with. Those are the people that you want to be able to emulate what they're doing, so that the next time COVID happens, you're ready to really take advantage of, that silver lining of it.
And I think, and I'm going to say shamelessly plug, but I think it's time that the Young Bucks podcast or YBP2, V2.0, whatever. Dude, I've never seen, and I've been doing podcasts for almost 2 years now, episode 67. I've never seen more gravitation towards this platform. And I know it's been huge. I mean, it's obviously huge in bigger markets. I mean, you got, the Rogan deal that went down with Spotify that pretty sure I predicted. I said at some point,
yeah,
somebody's going to go pay that man a bunch of money and make it exclusive. And it happened. Actually, I think Gary Vee mentioned it, and then I stole it from him. But I've seen, I've seen more people. I mean, I'm doing some different stuff, moderating podcasts, doing the editing, doing the publishing, writing all the stuff, show notes, all that things for other people who really know that podcasting is a huge platform to reach a very specific audience. But people don't want to have to buy the equipment. They don't. I mean, you went through that. You've bought equipment. You've had set up. You bought different equipment because the first round wasn't what you wanted it to be. But now there's other people that are like, hey, I'm thinking about for my company starting one, and we're wondering if this time to get. I saw volume 1 is getting into the podcast game.
Absolutely. It's on my list too. Now that, we're starting to kind of culminate on the NutriPrep side, where we have these machines up and running, out of the USDA facility. They're steaming and rolling them out every week. Midwest is under its own control. That now I start to have a little bit of time to say, hey, what's next? I'm going back to being a nerd. I'm also taking 3 online Harvard classes right now that take a fair amount of my time.
Of course you
but I'm looking ahead at, exactly that. And I'm pointing because I have the giant, the banner from The Office in my office now transplanted home, but always be thinking that little bit ahead.
No, I think it's fantastic. And there's the one thing that I do miss is when I go to pick up my meals on Monday, you're not there. You used to be there, hands in the dirt, throwing boxes around, like, hey, Coop, what's up? Like, now shut the hell up and get out of my way. I got to finish my work. So I do miss, being able to see you on the regular. But I know that's because as the owner, as the boss, as the CEMFO, and the expansion and the things with NutriPrep, you have to be able to relinquish the responsibilities because you do have a great staff that you trust to handle the things that you used to be hands-on and handle, because you are growing and the level is getting higher and the expansion is getting to this fantastic level. And I'm so I'm just in awe because you're like fucking killing it. And
I appreciate it. I always do, and people tell me that too. And I've mentioned this to people close to me. At some level internally, I still feel like I'm completely failing everything
yeah,
because that's my personality. Anyone that's Myers-Briggs people, I'm an INFJ, which is the 1 to 2% of the entire U.S. population. Very, very small, but with that comes not necessarily like a perfectionist mindset, but this mindset where I think through, these things like, hey, all right, we're using this USDA facility in Minneapolis. All right, we have a grocery store account, we have a C-store account coming up, some universities. Why don't we have 10 of them yet? What's the holdup?
that's
Why are we not 10 of these in yesterday?
yeah. But I think that is such an entrepreneurial mindset. That growth mindset. That this is great. That's better.
Yeah.
We talk. You mentioned this. Like, I'm here, but here's where we're going. Success. If you lie on your successes and you go, look at all I've accomplished so far. Look at where I stand on this pile of Midwest meals. It's amazing. I'm 8 feet tall, bulletproof. But I think if you always have that, yes, I respect the places that I've been, but this is just like the stair that I'm on right now. This is great. You're doing great. And all the smoke is great, but we're still progressing up the stairs and stuff. So I think there's a lot to be said about having that constant growth mindset. Like, this is great, but it's not enough.
Right.
What's up, D Price? Look at this, man. That great haircut from Dustin. Just jumped on.
Hey.
Now, who is Dan Beck? As you can see, he was a smart one, and he put it right on his name tag identifier right there. He's on the Instagram, of course, Midwest Meals, proud sponsors of the podcast. Full disclosure, it's been nothing but fantastic for me and everybody I've told about it. So thank you for starting that. And again, from a place that you had a goal in mind. You knew why you saw the problem. You knew why you wanted to start it, and you have, and now you continue on with your success. Make sure you check out MidwestMeals.com and NutriPrep coming to a store near you, man. I got this feeling I'm not going to be able to avoid it. You're walking by your fucking display in all these stores going, actually, you know what? No, I'll just be telling my robot to have your drone deliver my shit to my front door because I'm sick of driving around and picking that stuff up. And no.
Now we're talking the right language.
I know, innovative, always out there, brother. Hey, I appreciate you and the time, and definitely stay in touch. By the way, if you were listening or watching the podcast, thank you for tuning into the live stream on all the platforms. The podcast will be released later on this evening on all platforms, and you can follow that. Just search "Welcome to Cooperville" and you'll find it on. We just actually got on Amazon and Audible. They just jumped on the podcast platform as well. See, I'm telling you, shit's blowing up.
Hell yeah. I appreciate it, Coop, as always.
Thanks, brother. Let's get together in person sometime soon. How about that?
Amen. I'm always game.
Take care of yourself, man.
Bye.
He's out.